Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for letting me do the song. I had a really fun time recording it with my friend Daniel. I'm pumped on it. I'm genuinely very stoked to just share it with people.
Dude, same man. Like, you killed it, dude. Killed it on
Oh
the
man,
vocals, man. Like, I
dude,
loved it, dude.
dude, thank you. It was fun to like kind of like take on like a different genre, because like Silent Planet is the band that I've done pretty much everything with. Has always been more like everything's a little bit like kind of, I don't know, it's like more like clean and like kind of metal in a sense, where
Mhm.
everything's more like kind of to the grid. And it was
For
fun to like
sure.
work on something that just felt a little bit more like chaotic and like like had that raw energy to it.
Dude,
Hell
you
yeah.
matched super well, man. I absolutely love it, for real, dude.
Dude, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I'm not great at singing, but my buddy Dan helped get me like tuned and sounding okay. But I'm really not used to singing, so that
Dude,
was
that's
kind
my
of a
favorite
new
part, dude.
Yeah, same. What first enticed you about working on this Murals track or a Murals track in general?
I guess specifically Shane hit me up and was telling me about the idea of having different singers hop on different tracks where they can, talk about like things that they've been going through that aren't just wouldn't just be for them, but could be sort of expanded outward to the general population. And initially, it was going to be kind of like based around a lot of like during the pandemic and quarantine, I think. But what had just really like struck my heart a couple weeks prior was discovering the genocide that's happening in Ethiopia right now. And I don't even remember how I came across it on the internet, but I remember my gut instinct when I came across it. It was July of last year. Was like, how the fuck have I not heard about this? Like, you're talking about like whole villages of men, women, and children being slaughtered and left out aside of their villages, like with like their bodies decomposing in the sun. They're being thrown in the river and they're washing into Sudan, a country that it shares a border with. And you're just hearing about this horrific crimes against humanity and genocide. And it's like, it really troubles me that I could share a planet with these people and have no idea that that's going on. And like I wouldn't say that I'm the most informed person. I don't pride myself on knowing everything. I'm not a journalist, but like I just feel like I really feel like if we weren't going through this worldwide COVID pandemic right now, I think that a lot more people would we would know a lot more about it. But I think that due to how severe and how unprecedented this pandemic's been, um, the media has obviously focused primarily on that, which is understandable. I don't think it's not strange that the media would focus on an unprecedented thing that's literally impacting everyone's life all the time. So I get that. But I think just because there's a reason why things are the way they are doesn't mean there's always there's a drawback. I think, and the drawback of our myopic focus on the of COVID, I think, is that there are some human rights violations and atrocities that are not nearly getting the the worldwide audience and chorus of people like calling for change on their local political levels, on a federal level, people sending aid. And while I know that I'm sure there are millions of people in the loop about this, I anyone that I spoke to, like family and friends, I'd say, hey, like, have you heard about the Ethiopian genocide? And they were not familiar. So when Shane hit me up about that, and it's been a while, I think, since someone's hit me up to do. I don't know if I've ever really done something actually quite like this. It just felt like when he was like, "What do you want to talk about?" I was like, "I know this might be a little different than where a lot of the projects are going, but in in this case, um, this is what's on my heart, and on my mind. And if you guys are okay with me talking about it, I think that um, I would really like to do something about it. And thankfully, y'all were open to it. And I just love how it came together. I love the song. I just really enjoyed diving into it and finding a lot of like quotations, like old Ethiopian proverbs and like Ethiopian poets, and like kind of pulling from some of the phrasing and imagery that I was seeing from that culture. Because by no means do I claim to, have a mastery knowledge of Ethiopian culture, or I've never even really had the opportunity to participate in it. But I thought that if we're going to write a song about this thing going on, it'd be good to like just kind of try to put myself in that paradigm. Long answer, sorry.
No, that's what we're here for. Honestly, that's incredible. I didn't know you did that
that's
about
great,
the,
dude.
studying
Yeah.
poets and all of that. That really is really cool.
Yeah,
that
there's
is
a couple lines like even their gods have been delayed, was part of like an old proverb, and I would have to go back and look through it. There's a lot of talk of like generations, like generational wisdom,
Mhm.
and I was obviously thinking about how there's a whole generation of people in Ethiopia, especially in the northern Tigray region, that's being cut short right now. So.
Dude, I remember when we had the call with you before you tracked, and you were talking about this, and I had never heard about what's been going on there, and like since like you turned me on to reading up more on it, trying to find info on it where I could, and there were times like where I'd see like a news blip come across like Twitter or something talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, like this is the story that Garrett was talking about. So like, thank you for like turning us on to a story that is like really tragic. And more, it's always helpful to have more of a spotlight on it and have more people aware of what's going on.
Yeah, I hope so. Um, I think that people can affect change in a lot of different ways, and I hope that people hear this and maybe want to like look that up and say like, oh, like what's going on there, and maybe get involved, on a local level. There's a lot of different ways people can raise awareness. People can donate money. People can write their senators, and say like, hey, will you bring this to attention if next time you're on the speaking floor,
Right.
because it's even though the pandemic is serious and it's something that is we're working through. It's like it's not going away easily. We're coming up on 2 years of it, but like we can't, I think, turn a blind eye to atrocities happening on this earth right now, because we are all citizens of the earth. We've all been given this like unique, crazy privilege of being human beings for some amount of time, and I just feel like uh, I feel like it's our responsibility as like adults on this earth to like try to do something about this as this is happening in our time. Not everyone's equipped to like throw on their combat boots and go marching over to Ethiopia with human rights organizations passing out food to refugees. That's not practical, and I think everyone has a different role to play, and I think as songwriters, I think we have one of the primary roles that we should play is bringing this into like punk rock adjacent music, because uh, it, I at the moment, a lot of people being affected by this wouldn't have the ability to write songs about it with the privilege and the time that would take, but at the same time, this isn't something that maybe everyone is going to be able to like do something about right away. That hears the song, someone might like the song and be like, but even if they can know that that's happening, like maybe somewhere down the line they'll be able to help. Maybe
Have it in
they'll,
mind.
who knows? Maybe they'll meet a person from Ethiopia in 10 years and like have a little bit more empathy for something that possibly has affected them, their culture. This is like a worldwide trauma, and so I think that that's part of it. And yeah, it's like not wanting to, I guess, turn a blind eye to something that literally like just kept me up at night one night when I was reading about it, and I like couldn't sleep, and it was like an emotional experience. And I was like, it's like if something's on your heart, sometimes you just have to talk about it because it feels like you would maybe otherwise kind of be betraying something in you. There's a complexity to the discussion. There's long-standing political feuds that are at play between several of the forces of the official Ethiopian government and the rebel, if you will, forces from Tigray in the north, and the country that actually neighbors Ethiopia. I can't remember the name of that, but part of what happened is
Eritrea or something like that.
Yeah, Eritrea. Yeah. Thank you. The president of Ethiopia reached an agreement with the president of Eritrea, the country that it's borders, and they'd had a long-standing. They'd essentially been at war. Like they'd been having conflicts for a long period of time. So he received the Nobel Peace Prize for brokering peace in that region that so desperately had needed it. But along with that. Came basically their forces ganging up on yet another enemy in the area, which is the people of Tigray. And there, without a shadow of a doubt, have been atrocities. And of course, Western interventionism goes way back in Ethiopia to the times when European forces were raiding Africa and stealing their resources, and that's kind of part of what's on my mind as writing the song, because this like a lot of violence in a lot of impoverished nations, a lot of it can kind of go back to the undue and sort of unequal exchange that has occurred of so many regions of the world and wealthy European nation states. And there's a lot to read up on Ethiopia. It's a fascinating culture, very very unique, but it's a lot. I think a lot of people sometimes hear about suffering in Africa, and they get kind of overwhelmed with the subject. It's like and while I can see how that happens, I also I think part of growing up and just kind of being a part of our world is like taking the time to get to know, like, hey, like, what's out there. You don't have to go everywhere to sort of just get to know this little globe that we've been put on.
Yeah.
And that I hope that maybe some people hear the song and get a little curious about that culture, because there's also just so much beautiful art and poetry and life and culture in Ethiopia. Obviously, a lot of times I think people see impoverished African nations, and they sometimes also think that like there's only the conflict and the bloodshed, but there's also so much love and so much art and so much exciting invention and world changing progress that's happening in so many countries, including Ethiopia. And part of learning about the atrocities is saying, hey, we want to protect this culture, and we want to stop this this unfair bloodshed, because there's a lot of ways of doing that don't always look like imperial interventionism. So
Totally.
Right.
Well, it did. I mean, and going back to that, man, it did that for me already, because whenever I was reading the lyrics, you basically painted that picture, and then it kind of made me curious, and I did a little bit of research myself, and that's the reason I knew the name of the country. But it's messed up, because I was reading how like shit is like they're using starvation for like as a weapon of war, and like they're just not even letting the farmers like farm. Like, I don't know, it's just a lot of shit going on there that's like really fucked up. So
causing famine and like destroying bridges so people can't travel, and supplies can't come in, and they expelled foreign journalists, and obviously
they cut off their internet access, and they did strip like journalists from their resources. So, but I mean, like I said, man, it's what sparked the curiosity in me, and I was like, what is going on over there?
Yeah, that's an excellent point about the cutting off internet access, because that enabled, you know, a mass amount of bodies to be left out decomposing in the sun for 3 weeks, which
Yep.
that um, not only is that image grisly and alarming, uh, but like you think about what that means, like, and that's why, like, I started by saying choke the stench is at our throats. The future's at our throats. Sorry, the stench of open graves replaces stasis. The idea that um, there's something so evil happening that, like, even without the internet, which is the way that we've known pretty much reality now for a while. It's like our reality machine. Even without the internet, um, you have, you like, these bodies are washing down the river. Like, that's literally how horrible this is. How horrible of a thing that this is. It's not
Yeah.
something that needed the internet to essentially go viral. Like, it was going viral because there's people being murdered and their bodies are being disposed of, and they're being found on the earth. And that even like a corrupt politician can't hide that forever.
Stench of open graves, man. Like
Yeah.
that for me set that, like the scene and how graphic all that is. And it's like I said, man, the way you wrote about it and really painted a picture for me, and it kind of gives you that emotional connection,
Thank you. I also gotta say that y'all gave me a really cool song to like write to, and like, so your song was a big part of it for me, because um, I don't write lyrics not to music. It's hard to explain. Like, I'll sometimes write words just alone, and it's like, I guess, poetry in a sense. But I very rarely ever can take words that weren't written with music in mind and put them into the music in mind, because it's just, I don't know how to explain it. It just doesn't work. Like, and so that this song was a big part of the writing for me. I think it was like, I just I liked how sort of chaotic it was, and just like stop and go and stop and go and left and
Yeah.
right, and tried to bring out, I guess that just kind of brought out a lot of the kind of chaotic deliveries, I guess, and
Yeah.
like energy that came with it. So thank you for being such a cool part of it, because I guess that is collaboration in a sense, even if it's not like a back and forth kind of thing. It's
course,
still like an
yeah.
A to B collaboration, where like
Yeah.
it and that's just how it has to happen. I don't know how to describe it, but that's how it's been for me since day one.
You got to have the vibe, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
really do. I really do.
Yeah.
And I just think that, like, I think that music sounds like certain things. It's kind of like
Yeah.
the opposite of how of how a movie gets made, where like
Mhm.
they'll film the movie and then they'll like give it to the sound department,
Right.
and
Fill
they
out
do
the
score
emotion.
it, but also a guy will like knock on the door. But I guess for this, it was like the opposite, where y'all kind of gave me the sound, and then I sort of was trying to write like the script to it, if that makes sense. So
Definitely.
it was really enjoyable kind of having that with y'all. I feel like we were able to, even though we didn't have like a lot of conversations or a lot of back and forth, I feel like we were able to kind of like just get on the same level as far as
Yeah.
our like wavelength for it.
Yeah, it really does feel like a perfect collaboration where, like the what you had in mind already and what we had to offer, it was just like a seamless transition between the two.
Who mixed and mastered it?
Chris Crummett.
Oh, cool. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, shouts out to Equal Vision, though, for putting out our stuff. That's tight. Thank you for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Definitely. Thank you
Yeah,
for
dude.
collaborating.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
Yeah, this was awesome, dude. Yeah, thanks for everything you did with the track and just the whole experience.